Welcome to Sacred Stories Podcast, a place to explore and discuss new and exciting books of consciousness. I am your host, Reverend Patricia Caginello, and speaking with authors that have shared their wisdom and stories through their books is one of my favorite things to do. Today we are speaking with Jess Campmans, a contributing author to our new book of inspiring stories, Chaos to Clarity, Sacred Stories of Transformational Change. Now, Jess is a shamanic energy intuitive who guides soul purpose empowerment, enabling intrinsic, authentic communication and connection, and claiming of our sacred heritage through the universal wisdom of the horse. So, welcome, Jess Campmans, to Sacred Stories.
Thank you, Patricia.
So, I'm excited that you're my guest today. I'm also excited about your story in our book because the wisdom of the horse consciousness is very, very dear to my heart, and I believe a really important part of the ongoing awakening of the human consciousness.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. I know my entire life has been this evolution into greater consciousness through horse wisdom.
It's just so beautiful, and your story titled Guided by Equus is all about your journey with the horses. But to start, explain to our audience, if you can, please, what Equus means.
Sure. Equus is the scientific term for horse, or the horse collective. And the name Guided by Equus came to me a number of years ago when I started doing this healing work with the horses, because I realized that they had essentially been guiding my journey into consciousness for my whole life. It was just them helping open me up and bringing me back to my authentic self that I had kind of abandoned, and they continued to show up, and they still do, and they're still guiding me.
What a beautiful, beautiful journey. So you have horses, right? You live on a farm or a ranch. You're in Canada.
Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm. So is that your daily work is with the horses? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I ask only because I just think it's just such an incredibly beautiful way of life, to think that that's what you're doing during your day is spending time and having, with the horses on your land.
Yes, it is. And it has become actually very sacred. I think it always was. When I was a child, I would just wander out and spend most of my days with them. And then I started school and I had to kind of move away from spending my life with them. But I've virtually come back to spending my days just engaging with them in ways that they share things and help me learn and help me discover more, and just create a better relationship to do a myriad of beautiful things together.
So your story that you wrote in our book, Chaos to Clarity, is about your journey with the horses. Can you share your story with us now, please?
Sure. I guess I was riding a horse in the backpack with my dad before I could even walk. So my story with horses has been interwoven for my entire life. And then around age 8, actually it was just before my 8th birthday, my dad and I were out riding, and my horse that I was on jumped sideways, and I came off, but my foot got caught in the stirrup, and he jumped over me and kicked me in the head. I went unconscious, and that was kind of a whole journey back to me being in and out of consciousness that Sunday, going to the hospital. And then I had surgery and recovered from that and wanted to get back out to the horses as quickly as possible. And my mom and I kind of differentiate on the timeline, but it felt to me like it was only months before I was already back doing stuff with them. And then I grew up with them riding and training, and I wanted to become a horse trainer. So I went to college for that and started doing that, training horses and taking other people's horses. And throughout my life, I guess actually when I was in 1991 is when it really started. We bought a bred mare, and she foaled out, and we continued to breed and raise foals once every other year. And so this journey of having horses and what it meant to raise foals and train them and kind of really be part of their life, and creating them into something that was really valuable in the world, felt like it was really part of my soul. And then as I got married and started having kids, there became this big, I guess I'll say, discrepancy as to how my horses were showing me who I was and versus who I thought I was. And in about 2011, I was ready to just sell the whole herd because I didn't know why things weren't working. And it really just tore my heart apart that none of them wanted to be with me. And essentially they were reflecting who I was, or who I was being, which wasn't being true to who I really was deep inside. And so from 2011 until, I guess, 2014, 2015, when I kind of discovered the healing with horse work, they led me on this journey to let go of everything that I knew how to do and everything that I'd been taught to do, to really just come back to them in a way that was my authentic self, and how the innate way that I knew how to show up rather than how I had learned how to show up, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so that reflection piece is something that really helps us engage with them on a deeply authentic level. And that's just kind of been my journey from then on. They helped open up my empathic skills, my empathic connection, my intuitive connection, that feels very psychic. And I now communicate with them and with animals and with environments and tune into, I guess, just energy, to be able to offer information and to be able to communicate with the horses themselves, my own herd in particular. And I'm just kind of playing with it and evolving it and seeing where it all goes and unfolds. But they're leading me into this greater journey of getting back on and riding, because I had given up riding for quite a while to kind of move back and ground myself into who I really was and meet them where I was at then. And now we've kind of moved back into riding, where I will climb up on a fence, and just by power of invitation, either they invite me or I invite them, and I get on their back and we kind of go for a ride without a saddle and bridle, and just in a really intuitive kind of felt sense way. So it's just playing with this bigger field of things.
There's so much in what you just shared, but two things that I really want to focus on. The first was that the horses, how they distance themselves from you, and you said that was they were reflecting to you, a reflection of how you felt inside, or your self-image. Did I say that properly?
Yes, yeah. Who I was trying to be versus who I really was. They were reflecting, I guess, who I was trying to be, in that it was at odds with who I really was, if that makes sense. So
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of frustration and anger that was kind of buried deep within me, because I had stopped being authentic and true to myself, and I was really resentful of all of that. And so I think this is what they do, is they mirror what's at the base level of our emotional self and our emotional state, and share it in a way that helps us become congruent with that state.
Mm-hmm. It's just so phenomenal in the level that the horses communicate, and I'm delighted that you're sharing this, and that you do share it with your work, and we'll come to that, in just a few minutes. But because the idea of the communication with the animals, horses specifically, if a horse isn't doing what many times humans believe they should be doing, the humans think the horse is misbehaving or the horse is doing something wrong, right? Instead of having a consciousness and an awareness around that some horses, I don't know all horse consciousness, but some of the horses are really truly communicating in a really powerful way with the person, right? In order to help them, to get them to see something, to do something, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is a major shift in how people show up in their relationship with other sentient beings, the horses being one of them. And it, to me at least, in the people that I speak with and the people that I work with and so forth, the horse consciousness predominantly seems to be very just getting stronger and stronger, more nonverbal, I guess, if you would say, with humans who are ready and open and aware of what's happening.
That is for sure what it feels like too. I know the more I kind of opened up to this work, the more I realized there are a number of us that are very deeply connected to the horse consciousness, almost as leaders in this. And it's really interesting because the more I've learned and discovered is that the horses will meet us wherever we are at, and yet continue to show up to help us evolve in opening ourselves up to that greater consciousness and that ability to communicate, and really giving them a voice too, I believe.
It really is. It's exciting. I think it's just absolutely exciting. And second question I have has to do with the riding of the horses. And so I really love what you said, that you would go to the fence and there would be an open invitation, right? From both of you, whether or not you wanted to go for a ride together. Because I personally have a really big question about people riding horses and putting a saddle on them and getting on their back. And even if they have a great relationship with the horse, I question the horses, real, if that's what they would normally would want to do, would we want another animal coming on our back, and whether they could or not, you know what I'm saying? And so for the consciousness of how we show up in relationship with other sentient beings, just speak to that. And I know there's personal opinions, and I don't mean to ruffle anyone's feathers that may be listening, but just speak to that in the consciousness of truly what the animals may be here for.
For sure. And that's a great question, and one that, because I'm always continuing to ask why and what else is there. And I guess we could have a whole conversation around this question alone. But what I can say from my own experiences, and I have a herd of close to 15 horses that they continue to move in and out, and I've experienced riding many different breeds of horses and lots of horses. But I think it comes down to that conversation with them and giving them a voice, because it's really never, it's not really a black or white thing. I know that there are horses, and I've had many conversations with a number of people that are in this work and are, able to communicate on this level, that just like us, each horse has a purpose in life and certain desires. And so it really comes down to being in a conversation with them, and even what one day might be a no doesn't mean that the next day won't be. And so I guess if you're in tune with wanting to create a greater conscious connection to the animals and the world, it's to be open to, I guess, having that conversation and just seeing where it goes with that, because sometimes it might be the animal, and sometimes it might be us, and sometimes it might be the relationship. And where a number of my horses a couple of years ago said no way, they were also the ones that gave me intuitive hits that showed me that one day I would be on their back riding. And so it is just really interesting, I think. And again, to be open to receive as well as be able to have that conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So it's maybe we can start with the ask and the listen, right? In the developing of that communication. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that as the relationship develops, the choice may be different, right? For the horse, and that, they may really enjoy. Do you sense when the invitation is accepted on your part that they're enjoying the ride as well? I imagine they must be.
Yes, definitely. And I have become very aware of not wanting to force anyone, human or animal, to do something, because early on in my life, that was how I got things done. Was I could go and bust through anything and I would just do it and everybody would follow along with me. So I've really taken a step back and will continually ask and be observant and listening to what is going on in the greater field of awareness. And if there's something that is causing me to stop and listen, then to really pay attention to that.
Such important information and such important work that you do. Jess Campmans, what do you hope the readers receive when they read your story in Chaos to Clarity?
That's a good question, because part of my story is about a lot of loss as well. And I guess if I could just connect that to one really deep message, it would be to open up to your own innate and intrinsic connection to what's going on. And if you're continually asking why, then there's something on a deeper level for you to know and understand, and that we're always actually supported, even though it might not feel like it, because my life felt like a whole bunch of deaths and challenges, one after another. And yet those were the greatest gifts that I could have ever been given to help me both understand and become the person that I am now. And so I believe that for each one of us, right, that exists, I believe, for all of us, if we're willing to open up and just be aware of how things, of the greater perspective, I guess.
It's really just such a beautiful story. It's such a powerful story. Excuse me. It's such a powerful story. I encourage everyone to read it. It's called Guided by Equus, and it's in our book, Chaos to Clarity. Jess Campman, share with our listeners, please, how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you and your greater work.
Sure. My website is guidedbyequus.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and I love connecting people with horse wisdom and helping people explore what that means for them and how it can support them. So even if there's something on my website that doesn't make sense to you, just get in touch with me and I can help you maybe see something from a greater perspective, whether it's with the animals or humans or just in your life in general. Yeah.
That's Guided by Equus. So it's guided, Guided by by Equus, EQUUS.com. And this is Jess Campman. Jess, thank you so very, very much for being my guest today on Sacred Stories.
Thank you, Patricia. And I'm so excited that I could become part of this book and share my story.
I am as well. It is a beautiful book, and thank you for that opening. The title is Chaos to Clarity, Sacred Stories of Transformational Change, and it's available through Amazon and booksellers worldwide, or you can order it direct from sacredstoriespublishing.com. So, and thank you to our audience for listening today. I am your host, Reverend Patricia Caginello, and until next time, in addition to encouraging you to get your copy of Chaos to Clarity, I encourage you to write your sacred story well.